Well, she had 371 best of breeds. She had 340 group firsts out of that 371.
Good grief.
And she had 214 best in shows. Her last 39 shows, she won 32 best in shows. She had 10 best in shows 3 times in a row. She had 190 consecutive group firsts.
Excuse me? What was that?
190 consecutive group firsts.
Good grief.
In her last year of showing, in 1985, she went to 25 shows. She had 25 best of breeds, 25 group firsts, and 20 best in shows.
Good Lord. And what an incredible winning percentage. Just exactly how long was she out? What time period are we talking about? From what year to what year?
Well, she was born in October of 1978, and we took her out the next spring as a puppy, and her first show that I had her at was the Scotty Specialty Show in Detroit, and her brother, who had developed much faster than her, got best in show there. He was just a puppy too, but he went best in show, and Shannon was best opposite. She was in the puppy class, and he was in the open class because he was a big developed dog. But she was just a kind of a gangly puppy at that time, and we decided then that we'd put her away a little while and show him for a little while, and put her away while she developed a little more. So she didn't come out then for another 3 or 4 months. But then she finished real fast. She finished. I don't recall how many straight times she won finishing, but she finished real quick. And then we brought her out in specials. And about her first time, I guess it was her first show out in specials, but I'm not certain about that. I think it was her first show out in specials at Steel City. And Mr. Tipton gave her the group, and I always called him Doctor. Hayden Martin gave her best in show. That was her first best in show. I just noticing on her record there that Tipton had given her the group when she won her first best in show, and her last best in show was one under Mrs. Tipton.
Kind of ironic there.
214th was one under Mrs. Tipton.
Wow, 214 best in show. For the record, who was her breeder, sire, and dam?
Her breeder was a fellow in Detroit by the name of Gerling. And her sire was San Greg's Headliner. And her dam was a Anstam bitch, Anstam Happy Moment. And she was bred by Bill McGinnis.
No, wait, bred or owned by Bill?
Or owned by Bill McGinnis, I'm sorry. Owned by Bill McGinnis, and lived in Ypsilanti, Michigan. And he showed her for the first part of her record making. Exact time that he quit showing, I don't recall, but when he quit showing her, she had to take 6 months off at the height of her career, so she didn't go to shows for 6 months during that central part of her career. And then she was taken over by Alan Novick. He wanted another winning dog to add to his bunch of winning dogs that Houston Clark was showing and other people were showing, so he took over the ownership of Shannon. And he showed her until after the Centennial show, and then he's died real shortly after that. And then the Mussers paid her way from then on, but she was never in their name. But they paid her way the rest of the way on.
Well, tell me about her first owner, Bill McGinnis. What's he like?
Oh, he's kind of an extrovert. He's a paint contractor, lives in Ypsilanti, and he bought the two of them as just as Scotties. He didn't know exactly what he was getting. He just bought them because he wanted a couple of Scotties. He'd had Scotties before. he'd never done any big winning show on any of them or done anything with them. But he got these two from this fella Gerling, and they were sired by, as I say, Headliner, owned by Barbara Desai up in Detroit area. And he brought them to me to see if I thought they were good enough to go on show, and we got started with them.
Well, did you realize at the time, could you realize at the time the future that lay ahead of this dog?
No, there's really no way to figure a thing like that. We've had other top dogs, but they've never just gone on one like her. She just got rolling, and everybody was in love with her, and she was like Bill. She was an extrovert too. You never knew what she was going to do to you next, but there were times when she'd slow down a little bit, and everybody would say, "Why don't you lead break her?" Because she was a fireball, She wanted to do her thing, and they'd say, "Why don't you lead break her?" And then you bring her out the next week, and she'd slow down just a little bit. You'd straighten her out just a little bit, and she'd respond to you, and they'd say, "What's the matter with her today? Isn't she feeling good?" So, it's hard to please some of these people that are judging.
Is Bill still in dogs, or did he kind of...
No, he's kind of disappeared from the scene altogether. I never see him, and never hear from him. I guess he's just wrapped up in his work and doesn't have time to bother with the dogs anymore.
So he retired her, just kind of a natural course of her career, because she had quite a few bests at that time, didn't she?
Yeah, she had over 150, about 100, around 100, I guess, when he retired her. I can't recall the exact date that he retired her, but then we were on the lookout for somebody that would show her, of course. But then nobody came along, and he was just what she needed. He wasn't any problem to show for. He just said, "Go ahead and do it your way," and so that's what we did.
Well, tell us a little bit about Alan Novick, because he was something of a controversial figure, if only because he owned so many top-winning dogs. Was he pretty good to work for?
Yeah, he was no problem at all. He just gave you a free hand to go and do what you wanted, and do the advertising you wanted, and the whole thing. It was never a problem with him.
Well, did he keep track of the dog, and show real... did he really follow her, or was it just another toy?
Oh, no, he followed her pretty closely. He'd call every weekend to see how she'd done, and wanted to know how she was making out all the time, and went to a lot of shows just to see her. And he had a big interest in her. I think he had a big interest in any dogs he had, because it was a big ego trip for him, and he loved to do it, I guess.
Well, how did it come about that he ended up on the dog? Did he seek you out, or did you seek him out, or?
No, I think it was just a lot of talk between people that the Scotty shouldn't be retired, that someone should be showing her, and he got word of that, and decided he'd like to have her in his bunch.
Well, wouldn't it have been almost more traditional, perhaps, to have started a new dog for him, retire Shannon with her 100 or so bests, and go on to the next one?
Well, they're not that easy to find. You just don't find real great show dogs overnight. They come along once in a while. There's good ones that come along quite often, but the real top ones only come along once in a lifetime, probably. I've had some pretty good top ones, but I don't think I ever had one that took over like Shannon.
Oh, no. I can remember when you had the Sealingham Roddy out, and I think Jen Mr. Roderick, if I'm not mistaken, and he won something like 32 or 33 consecutive Group 1s, and I thought that was the ultimate all-time record that would just stand forever.
Yeah, well, he was a great show dog, and of course... Michael owned him and Dominator both at the same time, Michael Weissman. And it was pretty hard to run a record up on both of them, so we just kept splitting them up and showing one time and one the next. And I suppose if we had concentrated just on either one of those dogs, they'd have run up a much greater record. His Dominator got something like 78 or 79 best in shows. And Roddy had quite a bunch. I don't recall just offhand what his record was, but he had a lot of best in shows.
Well, there towards the end of Shannon's career, she was more or less competing with Manhattan, the German Shepherd, for best in show numbers at least. Would you have kept her going if Jimmy had kept Manhattan going?
Oh yeah, we definitely would have kept her going. There's no reason to stop her, actually, except it got to be that time of the year, and it was after Montgomery County and some of those other little shows there. Some little shows after that, and then we decided that was enough for her. She'd been going long enough. As long as Manhattan was retired, we'd retire her.
Well, it just boggles my mind that you could keep her going that way. I mean, mentally, physically, coat-wise. What is the key to keeping a bitch out like that? She might have had an off day here and there, but she was always in tip-top shape. How can you do that and be on the road all the time?
Well, we don't go on the road like some of these people glory-seeking today, running all over, flying dogs all over California one day and New York the next day, and I think that's pretty hard on dogs, and it's certainly hard on the people. And Shannon just went wherever I took my string of dogs. I didn't fly her any place by herself. Nobody expected me to, and I didn't do it. We just whatever shows we were going to on that weekend, if they looked like good enough judges for a possibility of winning with her, we'd take her along.
Well, yeah, but keeping a coat going on a bitch, I mean, she comes in heat, they blow coat. She just never was out of condition.
Well, she was a great coated dog. We've got some now that we're showing that are great coated dogs like that. Actually, it goes hand in hand. You don't run a record up on a dog that has a bad coat. So primarily, if you see a dog a terrier running a good record up, you know he must have a good coat, because in order to keep them in that kind of shape all the time, they have to be good coated. She was pretty easy to keep in coat, actually. She didn't have a bit of problem. She never turned gray. She never... a lot of Scotties, a lot of terriers, when you do a lot of trimming on them, their color changes. You get into that black and all it shows is undercoat, or get into that tan and all it shows is undercoat when you get the good coat off the top. But she never had that problem. She was black, right, undercoat and everything else. Everything about her was black, and didn't have too much problem keeping her in shape. We didn't have to color her or do a thing about it. Usually now when these colored dogs, when they start going out of coat a little bit, they have to color them in the whole bit, and I don't know, it's hardly worth all that if they're not good coated. I don't like to try to put records on them.
Yeah, but how did they kind of keep their heads straight, so to speak, when a dog is out every weekend and on the road and living in crates?
Well, it was a second home for Shannon. If you started getting the van ready to go to a show, she'd start screaming because she wanted to go. She loved it. It's just like I guess like kids wanting to go on a picnic or go to the amusement park. When she thought it was amusing, she had a great time, and she used to be hard to hold when you get her in there for best in show, and all those big dogs that start running. It was hard to hold her back. She wanted to run with them. It wasn't that she was giving you that much of a rough time. She just saw them run, and she wanted to run too. That was about the size of it.
Well, then, out of 214 bests in the show, do you consider Westminster and Montgomery County to be the highlights, or were there some other great moments?
Yeah, I think they were probably the highlights. There was a lot of other shows where we beat maybe just as many top dogs as you beat at the Garden or that you beat at Montgomery County, but I guess they would be the highlights for her, all right.
Well, then, if Montgomery and Westminster was the highlight, then the 84 Centennial show must have been the low point.
Well,